Oh, when I was your age, I guess I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. But I knew the kind of woman that I wanted to be. I very much wanted to be an independent woman. I met a man, a friend of, the father of a friend of mine, who invited, he said, come, he had a printing plant in Como, Italy. He was printing on silk. And he told me, he said, well, what you should do, come and see what I do. And come and watch the other side of fashion where we make things. So I went there and I wasn't really doing anything. I mean, it was like an intern who doesn't do anything, just watch this man work. And when I was there, I learned everything about printing. I learned how you buy artwork, how you put the artwork in repeat, how you, all the different ways you can print. You can print in application, you could print in discharge. I learned about the color palette. I'm pregnant, and so whatever. My mother said, well, you know, I said, what am I going to do? I don't want to get married because I'm pregnant and I want to be independent. She said, well, you're engaged, so you have to tell him. So I told him, I sent a telegram. I'm sure you don't know what a telegram is, but anyway, so I sent a telegram, and he sent me a telegram back, and he said, no, we're getting married, arranged wedding in Paris, mid-July. Okay, so I went to see the owner of the factory, and I said, listen, I am pregnant, I am getting married, and I'm moving to America. But I really, 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 really want to work. So will you allow me to make some samples from your factory, and I'm going to try to sell them. And he said, okay. And so that's how I started. The dress was very, very different than anything that was available. And I went around selling these dresses in different department stores and meeting women and showing them to them. And as I was becoming more confident myself, I guess in a way I was selling confidence with the dress. And the dress was very inexpensive, but it was a very nice quality. I mean, you can buy them now. If you buy an old vintage of 40 years ago, you could buy it on the internet 4 times the price of what it cost then. I mean, so yes. And then I had no idea that, you know, all I wanted to do was becoming independent, and my way was making clothes and making dresses. I never tried to make a fashion statement. Mm-hmm. But I realized that I wasn't making a fashion statement. I actually ended up making a sociological. Somebody once said, oh, it's the perfect dress because the men like it and their mothers don't mind it. I mean, it's a dress. I could tell you so many stories. So many people said, I got my job, I met my boyfriend, I did this, I did that. The most interesting story that I heard 2 years ago was I was organizing an event with the actress Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking, and she introduced me to her mother. And she said, and her mother, when she met me, she said, oh, I have something to tell you that even my daughter doesn't know. And she said, I seduced her father in a wrap dress. And as a matter of fact, I think she was conceived in it. So that was something. You know, people say, often ask you, if the girl that you were then knew what you know now, what would you do differently? And I used to hate when people ask me that question because I never knew what to answer. Until about 6 months ago, that all of a sudden it hit me. I guess that if I met myself at age 22 when I started, I would tell myself that I need to make a business plan. I had two phases of my business. The first phase was American Dream. I came as, I started as a 22-year-old girl, and within, before I was 30, I had a huge business, 300 people, lots of licenses and everything else. And of course, it happened so fast that I couldn't really follow and so on. And it resulted that, I think, 15 years later, I sold the company. And I thought that it was finished. I mean, I thought I would never go back. I went back to Europe for a little bit. I started a publishing house. And then I went back to to America, and then I realized that, oh my God, I hadn't realized how much my brand and my business and my work had been a part of my own identity, and I had lost it, and the people who owned the label, everybody was doing different things, and it had become really terrible. So that was a really difficult time. And I gradually, I wanted to get it back, and eventually I got my name back. And I didn't know exactly how I would start again. And then I started to realize that 18 years ago that young hip girls were buying the old dresses in vintage shops. And so that's when I started again. And again, and even though I was 50 then, I thought that I was the same person who had started, and I started with a group of very young girls, and again, in the same way. And it went very, very fast up again. So now, clearly, I have to think about the legacy, because now all of a sudden the brand is 40 years old and plus. So now my goal now, and what I am doing right now, is to figure out how I can leave it behind. And I've hired a new CEO, young man, Italian man, and he's putting a team together, and we're piloting design. So it's interesting, because now I'm kind of doing it in a way that it will be able to go without me. So the other thing that my mother told me many things. First thing is, fear is not an option. So she would never allow me to be afraid. And if I was afraid, if I was afraid of the dark, she would lock me in a dark closet. And it's not politically correct, but it works. After 10 minutes, I wasn't afraid. She also told me that no matter what, you cannot be a victim. And then she also told me that it was actually a privilege to be a woman. It was an advantage to be a woman. So these are all the things that I grew up with. And I later realized that actually I have never met a woman who is not strong. All women are strong. But very often, because of a brother or a husband or a religion or peer pressure, or sometimes because they are afraid to show their own strength, they hide it inside. But if tragedy happens, then all of a sudden, the strength come out. I mean, the digital revolution, which is really only 20 years old, really. I mean, it's changed everything, and the speed in which it goes fast and fast and fast and faster. I mean, it's only 5 years, I think, that we have smartphones, or 7 years maybe. I mean, it just seems impossible. How did we even function before? And now you can find everything. You can, you don't need atlases. You don't need encyclopedia. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You could think of someone and reach them immediately, no matter where they are in the world. And so everything is so different. And in many ways, it's so great, because people have access. They have access to so much. And then the bad thing is that, you could disseminate dangerous and untrue and a lot of things. But it's certainly, the world will never be the same, and it will happen faster and faster and faster. And of course, what everyone is terribly scared of and threatening to the world is AI, artificial intelligence, which is going so fast that you wonder what the role of human beings will be. So, yes, to live in today's world is incredibly interesting and incredibly stimulating, and to some degree alarming. But my mother said fear is not an option, so we're not afraid.
Fantastic.
So we are in a university town, so I wonder how important was your degree in economics for your successful life, basically?
I actually dropped out. I never got my degree because I hated economics. I mean, I can't imagine anybody study economics. I mean, if I were to do today, I would have studied history or literature. So, but it's everything you learn is so, but you continue to learn all the time. And, but your first education, I think, like elementary school and high school and early college, but the elementary school is probably what I remember the most. And I love to read, so literature was always, And I would have, literature was what I loved, but they said, what did you want to do? And I said, I don't know, I just love to read. And they said, well, what can you do when you love to read? And this person who I asked for, he said, well, you could be a librarian. And the librarian in my school was so unhappy and awful that I just did not want to be a librarian. But if I had had a happy, pretty librarian, I would have become a librarian.
Hello. Do you have any rituals or a mantra that you use to get yourself back up whenever or if you fall down?
I have, I do have rituals. I meditate. I do Tai Chi. I did yoga most of my life, and now I do Tai Chi. Nature is very. Nature. When you are in a city and in a small room and you have your problem is so big. But then when you go in nature, I love to hike. When you go in nature, all of a sudden you become very small, and then your problems are very small too. So nature is very, very reassuring to me. I'm hard on myself, and I often feel like a loser today too, but it doesn't last very long. And I think if you want me to give you one advice, is you should always remember that the most important relationship in life is the one that you have with yourself. Because no matter what, you will always have yourself. And I think that at the end is what, you go to the bathroom and you see yourself in the mirror and you wink, hi, all right, you get back together.